I have the best taste of anyone who's ever lived. I love a good story, and I love a good story that's told well. I imagine I'm not the only person who enjoys sharing my book or movie experiences with other folks. You get to hear their thoughts according to their perspective. Recently, I read Cormac McCarthy's The Road, and in discussing that with someone else who had also just finished it, she made the claim that she couldn't imagine reading another book as oppressively dark as The Road is. And I agree that the book was dark for sure. When I consider the post apocalyptic backdrop that the story is told in front of, it's a little bit harder to outright condemn what anybody does in that story. Whereas in Blood Meridian, any of the guys who are doing really evil, gut wrenching, terrible things, they could just do something else. How can I condemn the actions of those at the end of the world if I've never been in a remotely similar situation? In the words of my favorite bartender, have you ever had access to a predator drone? Started an interesting conversation, the idea that evil weighs more in the presence of greater personal freedoms. That's a story for another time. I have a bad habit. I have a vice that clings to me. I get caught on the same shiny lure like a big, ugly, stupid fish in a neighborhood pond. I get to the end of a 2 hour movie that I really enjoy, or God forbid, I get to the end of the 20 hours with a nice long book, and I go to review my experience on Letterboxd or Goodreads. I put in my thoughts, I put in my star review, and then I filter by lowest ratings first. There are people who didn't get it. There are people who think it's too easy to get. There are people who are upset at the lack of diversity. There's people who are really upset about too much diversity. There's cinephiles and book nerds endlessly comparing to their favorite media properties. And there's people who have barely ever picked up a book before, never watched a movie, still defining their taste profile and saying that something incredibly mid is incredible just because they've never seen anything else before. Like I said, this is a bad habit. In case you've never seen what I'm describing, here are a few real letterbox reviews I found. Why? What? How? It's like having a panic attack for 2 hours straight. Never again. Half a star. For the Safdie Brothers Uncut Gems, starring Adam Sandler.
Howard Ratner, how are
I
you?
absolutely loved this movie and how they portrayed literally everything. I was fully expecting a boring documentary type thing, but was very pleasantly surprised by the action, humor, and emotions. 5 stars for 2014's Hercules, starring The Rock.
It's about drive, it's about power. We stay
I
hungry.
think part of the problem here is we're not operating off the same rubric, and we're not going into these experiences looking for the same things. I think people fall into some separate categories. I made this handy dandy little political compass type thing here to illustrate that. On the x axis, we've got consumer versus appraiser, mindless consumption versus meticulous consideration. The y axis is enjoyer versus hater, internal whimsy and appreciation versus eternal bitterness and disappointment. I don't think there's a right place to fall on this chart. Personally, I fall about here. I think as long as you avoid the edges, you're probably in a good spot. It's important to be thoughtful, but you don't have to take everything too seriously. And critique is important, but not at the expense of your ability to enjoy anything. But these review platforms, what are we reviewing? Are we reviewing how things made us feel? Are we reviewing how well suited they are to our communities? Maybe we're reviewing the mastery that the authors or filmmakers are exhibiting through their finished work. Maybe we're reviewing none of these or all of them. How do we separate experiential review from empirical review? I think the short answer is we can't. We'll always view things through a lens of our past experiences and interpret them through a machine of our current preferences. Sometimes folks have such a strong connection to those feelings that inform how they appreciate books or movies that any kind of critique of the product feels like an attack on the memory. I am so glad that you have a warm, cozy, safe memory of yourself at age 12 reading Harry Potter, but is a terrible author. Some folks would go so far as to say she's a hack and a fraud. That critique doesn't invalidate your experience, but also your experience doesn't redefine her less than great writing. I promise to stay off the soapbox for too long, but I think that this is part of a larger political and cultural conversation. When your political agenda becomes too informed by your limited experiences and preferences, you run the risk of losing common ground with the people around you. You start assigning 1 star to silly little things like enjoying time with your friends, having a beer on the porch, birthright citizenship, shared civil liberties, empathy. And then you start giving out 5 stars to things like replacement theory, black pill nihilism, and Peter Thiel. We take in so much media every day. In a media ecosystem that's becoming more and more crowded by corporate cash grabs and state sponsored propaganda and generative AI slop, it's incumbent upon us to learn what is beautiful, what's worth engaging with, and what is real. I have a guiding principle that helps me from getting too upset about other people's opinions when they're terribly misguided. When I was 20 years old and I was trying to make my underage drinking habits seem a little bit more refined and tasteful, I was telling a story to my brother and talking down about people who chose hard seltzers as their drink of choice. He told me something I'll never forget, which is the only right way to enjoy something is the way that you most enjoy it. So read ACOTAR and Colleen Hoover and Dungeon Crawler Carl. Watch the He-Man movie and get a real kick out of it. Go to every new Marvel premiere. So read the book you want to read, watch the movie you want to watch, enjoy them as much as you can. Feel free to leave a review that's purely based off of your experience. Just spare a thought for my heart and my sanity and add a disclaimer so I don't spend the rest of my life thinking I have the best taste of anyone who's ever lived. Hey, thanks for watching the whole video. Feel free to subscribe. Find me on Instagram at Jibsterman. Got my Goodreads and my Letterbox link there as well, so you can look at all my bad takes and you can make fun of me for being a Cowboys fan. See you next time.